Free men need to be able to protect their families. It's really sad to see people hurt, livelihoods destroyed, even homes destroyed, just to make a political point. Free men take action when churches face heartbreaking attacks. And while cowards stand idle, free men run towards the sound of gunshots when children are in danger. I'm so thankful for free men who stand ready with the tools of liberty.
Hi, I'm Robert Borton, CEO of Classical Conversations, the world's largest classical Christian homeschooling community. I'm launching a new podcast, Refining Rhetoric. If you like cross-politics or just listen to hear what crazy stuff they're saying today, you will enjoy Refining Rhetoric. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform. I practice the 15 tools of learning by interviewing great guests, looking at current events, and talking about cryptocurrency.
Welcome to Cross Politic. I'm the Chocolate Knox, and you're back. We might be gone, but you're not. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And hey, have you got your tickets yet for the Fight Laugh Feast conference? October 11th through the 14th, out at the Ark Encounter. And you can go to the Creation Museum too if you go get your tickets right now. FightLaughFeast.com. I know you got, and I know you signed up to become a club member because you are a good Christian, and all good Christians make sure they get their discounts. And with a Fight Laugh Feast club membership, you get the $100 off. And I know you did it because you want a clean conscience. Anyway, so today, excited about this one. Steve Deace and Joe Rigney. I forgot we had them in the studio. This was interesting because if I remember correctly, this was right after Trump had just won. And Steve Deace, after the show, goes on this tirade. And I figured out something about Steve Deace. He goes on this tirade because I believe he was working on Ted Cruz's campaign. And boy, he just gives us kind of an insight into politics in the backstage of it. And the only thing, I don't even remember everything that he said, but I knew it was powerful because at some point in there, I picked up my phone thinking I was going to have to call an ambulance so that we can revive this man, because he stood up from the table and started jumping up and down, telling us all the whole story of what was going on with Trump and this and that and Ben Carson. And he saw it coming, but he turned red. And I thought he couldn't breathe because he was just going on for so long. It was hilarious watching him go. And I think he just talked for like 2 hours after the show. And it was one of the best things. And I was so mad at myself because I did not record it. But we did record this full episode. So enjoy Steve Deace with Joe Rigney. First time we figured out Steve Deace was a beast. He's a bad man.
Cross Politic begins in 3, 2, 1.
I'm a heart that breaks for a dying city.
Stop cursing your future.
Is not true.
For all intents and purposes, I am a woman.
No government, no political system has ultimate supremacy. Jesus is King of Kings, and it's about time our nation return in humble submission to his lordship.
You are not protecting women. You are authorizing the destruction of 500,000 little women every year.
But I didn't start it. But sir, with all due respect, that's the argument of a 5-year-old. I didn't start it.
Right, when the Spirit comes upon people, they go to war, they go to battle, and the enemies of God are driven back and they're slaughtered.
You are listening to Cross Politic with Gabe Wrench, the Water Boy, Pastor Toby Sumter, and the Chocolate Knox.
Hey, y'all, welcome to Cross Politic. It's been a good week. I don't even know what week it is at this point. What day is it?
I've actually been asking the kids in the mornings when I do the devotions if they can tell me what morning it is.
Oh,
because it's the summer.
Well, and because there's been this intense called conference going on all week.
Yes. It's the only time you're allowed to wear somebody else's shirt on this show,
right.
Except unless your name is Steve Deace too. Then you can rock that shirt.
This is not tacky self-promotion. It's a name tag, so everybody remember who I am. And I'm sticking with that.
Because people need to know your name.
I'm not wearing my own swag. It's just a name tag.
That's right.
Right.
But I asked the kids, and one day there was a really strong argument about whether it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm just saying.
With the kids?
Yeah, the kids.
What are y'all doing to them kids over there?
So you guys know we advertised called conference on the show. We had Steve Deace coming out, who's out for the Called Conference, which is going on this week.
You are having a bad week.
And then we had Matt Walsh coming out, whose flight got canceled. That was pretty disappointing.
So God said no.
But Pastor Wilson, Ben Merkel speaking.
Yeah.
It's been a packed week. It's been really good.
Also, this guy.
Also, our worldview speaker for the whole week, brother Pastor Joe Rigney, who's been awesome. The talks will actually go up online. They'll go up online. No, I was getting to Joe. I was trying to hype it up. Wow. You guys weren't letting me
Say
get
the best for last.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
The last will be first one day too. So
And so it's been a great week. It's been a long week, but man, like Monday, Matt calls me, says I can't make my flight. We had kids not registered for the conference that were showing up. It's probably more our paperwork trail than their problem. I mean, it was.
Oh man!
But after like Monday, it's been pretty smooth selling and everything. So, but it's been a great conference, and would love to. We're going to do it again next year too. So,
yeah. So welcome to Cross Politic.
Yeah. So share the conference. Don't forget it's Sunday night. So we need to share the show and like the show, comment on it. You guys have probably followed the fallout from the last show with Pastor Greg.
What happened?
What happened? It went all over the place. Actually, Matt Walsh did share it. It got on the Christian Daily Reporter.
Yeah.
Activist mommy shared it.
Yep. Even activist mommy. I feel like we sort of kind of made it with
when activist mommy.
Oh wow, we're going big.
Yeah. So we part of this we got to kind of turn this around and thank our club members for all your support and being able to do what we do. So keep it up. Keep giving us.
And if you're new, if you just found out about us, hey, this is Cross Politic. You can find out more at crosspolitic.com. You can join. You become a member. Yeah. We have all kinds of awesome special things for members.
Does that sound like a good sales pitch, Steve? Join the club?
Sounds like you don't remember what you're supposed to give away. You just came up with that phrase.
Awesome
That's
special
what I
things.
say when I forget my own live read and I just throw out some superlative like that.
Awesome special things.
This stuff is great. Try it. Yes.
Join Cross Politic.
Cross Politic Worldview Shotgun Series, right?
Yeah, right.
That's
actually, before I forget, I've been meaning to bring this to you.
What is that?
Gabe.
No, don't feed the beast.
True Texan.
This is from my
Armadillo.
This is from my wife.
Heart of Texas.
She found it somewhere and she wanted to give it to you, and she's been telling me to take it out of her house for months.
Thank you. Tell her thank you. You know the thing about armadillos, it's armadillo. Okay, the thing about armadillos is you'll be driving down the highway.
Is this mansplaining?
No, this isn't. This is armadillo-splaining.
Texas splaining.
Yeah, Texas splaining. Is you're driving down the highway and you know how armadillos they could basically your car can drive over them without killing them.
He's gonna take over the show.
But the problem is they'll jump up, they'll spook, and they'll jump up right into your fender, and you'll kill them. So it's just a interesting
is that
thing.
a problem or is that a perk?
It's I don't know. It's a feature of the fall,
thing.
probably.
It's a Texas thing.
It's a Texas thing.
As soon as I
You're
saw it, I was
from Texas too, aren't you?
I knew what that was.
I'm glad you put the Texans on
you're
that side.
You're a Texas dude too, though, aren't you?
I would like to be.
Steve would.
What?
Yeah,
it's my relocation mistress.
Why, Steve?
It's got two things I greatly covet: no state income tax and no winter.
Doesn't Washington have that?
But the property taxes.
Yeah, Washington has a winter.
They're pretty bad.
Yeah,
they're pretty brutal. So there's been a lot going on just for us this week with Called Conference going on.
Right.
But one thing we haven't had a chance to be able to get into is this whole Trump-Russia thing. Ooh. The whole Trump going to Russia. I texted our buddy John Crawford.
Yeah.
Was in the UK and he landed the day Trump met with Putin, and I was texting him. I was like, "Did you have anything to do with that little Putin problem?" But with the fallout of this, let's see if we can all play this here real quick. See if you can all hear it. But of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, our immigrant Arnold Schwarzenegger, had some comments about Putin and the whole Trump meeting. Let me play it real quick.
President Trump, I just saw your press conference with President Putin, and it was embarrassing. I mean, you stood there like a little wet noodle, like a little fanboy. I mean, I was asking myself, when are you going to ask him for an autograph or for a selfie or something like that? I mean, you literally sold out at this press conference our intelligence community, our justice system, and worst of all, our country. You're the president of the United States. You shouldn't do that. I mean, what's the matter with you? I mean, whatever happened to the strong words or to the strength of Ronald Reagan when he stood there at the Berlin Wall and he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. What happened to all that?
I think a point there.
Yeah.
Where Trump looks strong everywhere. Yep.
What did you think about this?
Yeah.
As usual, I think almost everybody's wrong. And the reason I think
in the media?
Yeah. And on both sides, because most of my industry, and I don't want to be one of those conservatives that says the media. Well, I work in the media, right? Okay.
Talking about yourself.
Yeah. Most of the media today is driven by, can I hate Donald Trump even when he's right, and prove that I can hate him better than you can, even when he's right? Or can I genuflect to Donald Trump even when he's clearly wrong? And this is the greatest. And some people say I'm the best genuflector. You've never seen genuflecting like this before,
right.
okay? And so this becomes a personality contest. You know what Schwarzenegger said there about the intelligence community? Hey, where are those mass stockpiles of WMDs from Baghdad? You guys seen those yet? Hey, where's all these? Where's John McCain's freedom fighters in Syria? Yeah,
Hillary's hard drives.
Yeah, the intelligence community promised us that the Arab Spring would bring forth a Muslim democratic nirvana in Libya and Egypt, Syria. Total failures. So I don't really give a hoot about offending the intelligence community.
Yeah.
Where I do agree, though, is watching an American president literally sit there and go, "Wind beneath my wings," emasculate himself. Forget politics for a second.
That song, Knox?
Yeah.
Let's just do the dude code.
Yeah.
In any circumstance, and I mean any circumstance, is it appropriate for one dude to use the words, and I quote, "strong and powerful," when referring to another dude in any competitive or rivalry setting? Like, does Nick Saban come out and say, "We really found Auburn's offensive line in this Iron Bowl to be strong and never happens"?
Yeah.
You don't ever do that.
That's right.
Okay, and the emasculating aspect of it, it's been 5 days. Yeah. I'm still deeply offended by it. As a man, I'm offended.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I've not been following very closely, but the thing that I noticed was there was this really strong contrast between what he was doing in England with Theresa May and the whole NATO discussion. I mean, everybody was just, on fainting couches because he was so direct and so,
Well, and back to the G7 summit, he walks in, he comes in late,
Right. But he's, I saw a few clips of him telling him, you guys are, you're screwing this up. You're taking advantage of American generosity. I mean, he's just direct. He's pushing at the problems and saying this has got to change. And then he shows up with Putin and wind beneath his wings. Is that what we're going to go with?
You saw it. Well, it's cross-politic. If it was my show, I probably would have been a little bit more plain, but I'm going to be polite here as the guest.
I got a beat button over here if you need it.
But you saw it a year ago. I mean, he went over to Saudi Arabia and walked in a room of sheikhs and clerics and said, "Y'all need to come correct and police your religion because we're tired of doing it over here and we're not doing it anymore."
Wow.
Yeah.
Something I've wanted a president to say since about September 12th, 2001.
Come on now.
And then I don't know why in these settings, it's actually harder to walk into your allies and say, "Pay us the money you owe us."
Yeah.
It's harder to walk into the room of the nations that are harboring the number one existential threat to the United States and say, "Police your own." I don't know why he's able to do that.
Yeah.
And then here we have Xi and Un and Putin, a consistent pattern with these three. And the latter two are basically wannabes. Russia is greatly diminished, is really a non-entity on the world stage. Xi is essentially leads a country where we're their middle class. Like, they would go bankrupt without us.
This is China. We're talking about China.
Yeah, we would buy all their stuff. So I don't know why to these
middle class.
I don't know why to these countries he's assuming the position. It doesn't make any sense to me.
So, but why does particularly with Russia, you have this interesting phenomena where even like Obama was kind of trying to work with Putin a little bit. Remember when he kind of had those off the cuff remarks?
So wait till I get reelected.
Wait until I get reelected. I'll have a little more latitude after the election. Right. And he said that to Putin, the
that
Russian.
Off the mic. Off the mic.
It was off the mic, but it's recorded.
We got you, buddy.
Why do we do this with Russia?
I don't know. I mean, if you go back to the last Olympics, they were literally paper macheing bunk beds and masking tape toilets.
Yeah.
All right. It's a thugocracy. It's barely above a third world country. It is run by thugs and oligarchs.
I got the beep over
there. Okay. And here's what I would have loved Trump to have said.
Yeah.
When the question about Russian collusion came up, of which we've had 67 or 800 indictments. None of them have been actually about Russian collusion.
Yeah.
I'd have loved it if Trump would have said after Putin blew it off, he would have said, I don't blame Vladimir for laughing off Russian collusion. I get asked about this all the time. And now that I think about it, I can kind of see why Vladimir finds it so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at how greatly diminished on the world stage Russia has been over the last 20 years, they're really a non-entity. We are the world's lone superpower. The idea that this country that can't, feed their own people somehow is who interfered in the last election of the world's mightiest country, I would find that laughable too. Yeah. Now, that's America first.
That's the Trump we know.
That's America's first.
Yeah.
What we saw with Putin was, we saw emasculation first.
Yeah.
Like that was a dude code violation. Like he's got to come home, do like 9 chin-ups. He's got to basically do the Murph workout after that. That's like repentance in the dude code. You gotta do the Murph. When you emasculate yourself that bad, you got to do the Murph, and it's got to be on Facebook Live, and we all watch.
Somebody give me some popcorn.
Yes.
I just want some popcorn.
That's your
And he's just doubled down on it though.
Because
so far he's just doubled down.
That is Trumpian fashion. He's never wrong.
Right.
And like the only 2 people that want to keep Trump to keep talking about Putin are on CNN's payroll, and then Trump. Everybody else is like, dude, this is getting uncomfortable to watch now. Can you move on?
Yeah,
like get back to NFL kneelers and Jim Acosta. This is lame. Yes.
NFL kneelers. Now it seems like there's like local politics, U.S. politics, and trying to be president with what's going on here in the U.S. But then there's this international politics, and I like. There's got to be more at play there for Trump to be acting this way with Putin.
Well, if you want to get fired in our business, try psychoanalyzing Trump. So I'm going to try it. What I think you have is Trump is a business magnate, but there's not a board of directors.
That's right.
He runs. He runs an empire.
Yeah.
Everybody answers to him constantly. Everybody from at Trump Tower, from the mailroom to his assistant, their livelihoods depend on him. And I think it's one thing to push around a bunch of metrosexual, wimps, hacktivists like Jim Acosta. That's low-lying fruit.
Yeah.
It's one thing to tell a bunch of spoiled brats in the NFL, tell those blankety blanks to get up and stand for the anthem from 3,000 miles away at a rally in Wisconsin. It's another thing to walk into a room with 3 guys who, because it's Thursday and they're bored, can just have people's throats slit. That's real power.
Yeah.
And in a Trumpian worldview, that is real power. And so it's easier to smack around. It's easier to pimp slap the low-lying fruit everybody already hates and loathes. It's another thing to stand up there when your act is kind of a shtick. You're kind of a shtick bully.
Yeah.
And we saw this in Iowa in the caucuses. The second to last debate, when he was jumping on the whole thing that Cruz is not a natural-born citizen, we had prepared a soundbite to answer that, to turn it back on Trump. By his own standard, he's not, because his mom was born in Scotland.
Yep.
Okay? When we pulled that on him, you could see the blood drain from his face when his pants got pulled down. The next debate, which was the last debate before the Iowa caucuses, you guys remember what happened?
No.
He wouldn't show up.
Oh, that's the one he didn't.
He said, I'm not showing up.
Here.
I'm doing a veterans benefit.
Yeah.
And it took, I don't know if those veterans groups still have even gotten the money from it. But I think what you're dealing with is a guy that's used to pushing around trust fund kids on the Upper East Side for hotel properties.
Yeah.
When you walk into a room with China, when you walk in a room with North Korea, when you walk in a room with Putin, those are real bullies. And I think he's somewhat intimidated by them.
I was thinking when we talked about his conversation with Un, the thing that made me think, maybe something happened here was the reaction of South Korea. So, anybody who has anything to lose, it's the South Koreans in a situation like that. If he's just blowing sunshine and it's a game, the South Koreans are going to be the ones that are going to suffer. And the fact that the president, of course,
because North Korea is their neighbor.
Yeah, because they're neighbor. They're the ones, that's the existential threat is right there.
Yeah.
But the fact that the South Koreans and President Moon said, this is something significant, this has not happened before, gave me pause to say, okay, maybe this is something unique, maybe this is something different.
I agree. I didn't have any criticism. I mean, I kind of cringed, but I also understanding Trump's personality.
When Trump said everyone's looking pretty thin here. They're all going to sit down at the table. He's like, everyone's looking pretty thin here.
Yeah.
Kim Jong-un's
I would have been much more comfortable. He would have said, pardon me, my car hit a water buffalo. Can I borrow your towel? Or it's all ball bearings these days.
My favorite part of that was when Un then looks at the camera like he's Jim Halpert on The Office, and he's just like, did he just say that?
There is no situation Donald Trump cannot make awkward.
I was like, what situation's not cringeworthy? I mean, even when he's doing something you kind of agree with, you're still kind of.
I've also seen him be extremely warm, extremely personable, and I've witnessed it with my own eyes at times. So I think you just have to bake into the cake a certain handicap for his mercurial personality.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't say much criticism about the North Korea summit.
Yeah.
But now that we're, I'm Trinitarian, so I believe in the rule of three.
Yeah.
This is 3 straight tyrants he's met with individually. That China, we were told for 3 years they're a currency manipulator. He has one lunch with the guy. He comes on and says, "We're going to make Beijing great again, guys. They're perfectly swell."
Wow.
And so I'm just like, what in the Sam Hill's going on here?
Guy?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Huh? What? Yeah. Huh? I don't know.
Okay, well, hey, look.
You
didn't say anything.
You've been quiet on that.
I've been enjoying myself. No. I don't need to say anything. I just need to grab some popcorn and chill. Are you kidding me? When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and postmodernism.
I am so in on this.
We're doing it.
More cross politics. So, while we're going to this break, let me talk real quick.
How important is it to you to be involved in your child's education? How important is it to you to instill your values in your child? How important is it to you to be a part of something that's a little bit bigger than you? How important is it to you to have your child be a part of something that's just a little bit bigger than them? Everything that I wanted for my children's education, every question I asked, Classical Conversations was the answer.
I thought we were going to talk about politics. Are we talking about sports?
This is politics.
I'll shift my mind.
No, this is politics.
I'm in it to win it.
We got one more segment.
What are you talking about?
It's true. I'm in it to win it. I got to get my basketball game on.
You bring us in because he's tripping.
Welcome back to Cross Politic. This is not like any other show we've ever done. It's completely different.
Yes, that's right.
Because on this show, we have with us Mr. Steve Deace, and we've got Pastor Joe Rigney, and we have the Chocolate
Pastor?
Knox.
What, huh? Hey.
And he has a question about Michael Jordan.
So I was watching. I love Colin Cowherd. I don't know what Colin Cowherd. I heard Cowherd. Thank you. I can't say it right, but anyway, I watched him, and I've been really enjoying some of his observations.
I think they're called rants.
You respect the man, okay? Respect the man.
They're observations if you're behind the mic.
Yeah.
They're rants if you're listening. Yes.
But one of the things that I've noticed that he pointed out was that LeBron James, the best ball player to ever play the game, and he removed the argument from the object of the game, which is basketball is about winning trophies. And it started making a way from my head that I started thinking, I said, you know what? This is not just about basketball. This is the way the culture is starting to view everything. This is a postmodern understanding of what victory looks like, of what winning looks like.
Yep.
That they changed the whole game.
Yep.
And we sat here and we talked about on Cross Politics. I said, listen, guys, it's about the rings. It's about the objective of the game. And so I kind of got a little heat for it, especially on Facebook. And I'm going down scrolling, pouting a little bit. And I see Steve Deace. 5 reasons?
Mm-hmm.
5 reasons why Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James. And I started shouting. I had a moment. I just started shouting. I started breaking up. Hey, somebody preaching! Preaching! So, anyway, since you were here, I want you to drop those 5 reasons for me. I want you to kind of break it down for everybody, kind of how this is reflecting the fact that we can't understand LeBron James, Michael Jordan comparison because of our postmodern understanding. Go, popcorn.
See, I will, let me encapsulate it into like one big thought rather than all 5.
Can I do this? Is this okay?
This debate, I believe, is the sign of a soft culture.
Come on now.
And I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill or blow it up. This isn't a hot take. Yeah. I don't think, it's like the North Carolina football coach who said the other day, if, we lose football, we lose the country. I love football. Okay.
He was close though.
Okay,
he was close.
Like the reasons you might lose football are why you might lose a country.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But football in and of itself is not indicative of the health of a culture.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not this debate. This LeBron Jordan debate is not making us soft.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The debate is a symptom of how soft we've become.
That's right.
Because we've removed every criteria that we used to judge greatness, and instead we're using modern criteria like brand, like platform, like stats. And by the way, if you do a statistical profile between LeBron and Jordan, it's not even close. Jordan kills him. It's not even close, guys. Right. So we're just going to go by. I could just give you a list as long as my arm of statistical accomplishments before we even get to the greater narrative that you were discussing, just if just by their own platform brand, dude invented modern sports marketing. Dude invented shoes, made shoes cool. Like you could wear shoes to work.
There were no shoes before Michael Jordan.
There weren't any shoes for $100 you get your mom and dad to buy. I can promise you that.
That's true.
Okay,
that's true.
So I mean, the idea all the stuff LeBron is doing now, it's like Lincoln or it's like he's like Jordan is George Washington, and Lincoln and LeBron's like another president that comes after, using what he's already established and claiming I did it better than anybody else. Where if it weren't for this guy, this stuff wouldn't exist.
That's right.
But I think the other thing we have that the culture that Jordan grew up in, it incentivized his ruthlessness.
Yeah.
It said, hey, if you're gonna beat, and I was growing up in Michigan at that time. We had the Jordan rules with Joe Dumars and Bill Lambier. We what we did to Michael Jordan when he went to the rim.
It was rough.
It's a Dayton prison.
It was rough.
And it's a serious misdemeanor like every Southern state. All right. And we called it defense in '88.
Yeah,
come on now.
Right.
All right. And I mean, we mauled him.
Bill Lambert was brutal with Jordan.
We assaulted him on the court.
Yep.
We broke Scottie Pippen down so bad in Game 7 of the 1990 Eastern Conference Finals. He's like, I got a migraine. I can't play. Mike.
He wouldn't go back out.
You got him, coach.
Yep.
All right, I'm not going back out there.
Yep.
So he had to beat us. He had to beat Magic Johnson and the Lakers. He took on every other great team. He quit for a year in his prime, comes back, dominates again with an entirely different set of teammates.
Yeah.
All right. And I think a lot of it was the culture he was a part of incentivized his ruthlessness.
There was a time that he was almost dead and playing.
Yes.
He was like
4 degrees.
See, I think LeBron is more physically gifted than Jordan.
Okay,
and I think if Jordan was if LeBron had played in the era that Jordan was in, I think that culture would have pushed LeBron to be as but the culture that LeBron's in now is, let me go on Instagram and congratulate myself. Well, I'd like to win championships, but I want to have a platform and a voice, and I want people to hear what I think about, who should be the congressman of the 14th district of Babylon. So let me talk about that on ESPN on Woke Center tonight.
Woke Center. I love that.
Jordan was like,
we actually talked about this last week at the Revoice.
Jordan was like, dude, Republicans buy sneakers too. He actually said that publicly. When he was questioned about why he isn't spouting off on social justice warrior politics, you're like, well, Republicans buy sneakers too. So I'll talk politics when I'm done selling sneakers, but right now I want to win some championships and sell some sneakers.
Right.
And so I think LeBron's culture that he is a part of, where he had the fake graffiti, where he claimed a few years ago he had racial graffiti in LA, and the LAPD's like, we don't see any racial graffiti. Okay. So I think that's also where a guy's like, dude, everybody else is getting discriminated against. I got to get mine. So I got some racist graffiti. There's no racist graffiti. All right. And so I think the culture has held LeBron back. And I think him going to LA and signing a 4-year deal is a sign that he said, I'm not chasing Jordan's ghost anymore. I'm just going to go to LA and set myself up for being culturally relevant after basketball. And if we win any more titles, great. But right now, he basically traded losing in the NBA Finals to losing in the Western Conference semifinals.
That's all he did. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, I tell you, growing up in the game, I started playing ball when I was 7 years old, and then I played a couple years of JUCO ball. So I didn't go that far, but I had 17 years of playing ball. And watching the development in the NBA, I was a big NBA fan, big college basketball fan. I've become far greater a college basketball fan than NBA fan. I've lost interest in the NBA.
I'm more of a college game too fan.
Yeah, right. And it's largely the whole. It's not just the culture, but it's how the games play. There's no toughness with these guys anymore in the NBA. I mean, the way the defense is played, the way that they've actually changed the way the game's reffed. They've made charges different. You've kind of watched it if you're standing outside the box.
I actually think. If I didn't grow up in Michigan, I'd have hated the Bad Boys. And then the Knicks that Jordan had to play after that, Pat Riley got tired. They were even worse with Anthony Mason and those guys. They were worse than us because they were just as physical as we were, but not as good.
Right.
All right. So they were worse,
which made it almost mean.
Yeah,
they just weren't as good.
I like watching the game more now.
Yeah.
I just think there's no reason to watch until about May 15th.
That's right.
Because there's only 3 relevant teams.
Yeah.
And I'm a dad. I got 3 kids. I've got 7. I'm like a Jamaican with 18 job, man.
Come on.
Why
that's my quote.
Yeah.
Steve Steve. We invited Steve on the show. He stole my quote.
Because we both saw from in living color back in the day. All right. So I mean, why am I watching the Sacramento Kings and the Washington Wizards on a January night when my daughter's got a ballet recital and my son's got a basketball game?
Irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
And I have no idea who plays for those teams either.
I couldn't tell you either.
Exactly.
I mean, 10 years ago, I could have told you every coach in the NBA. Now I might be able to tell you 5.
This is my whole thing. I mean, so I'm not a basketball guy.
I'm sorry.
At all. And the reason is because it's the kind of sport where like you can concentrate the good players on one team, and then you can be the Warriors. The Warriors can happen in a way. So I'm a baseball guy, and I don't think it can happen in baseball.
I got a response to that. I think part of the problem is we've actually limited the ability of the coach to actually coach in the NBA.
That's true.
We've hamstrung coaches.
Magic was getting coaches fired in 1981. He got Paul Westphal fired. And you know what? I don't know what you think. If I watch Charles Barkley, who late in his career signed or orchestrated a move to go to the Houston Rockets, so coming off of back-to-back NBA titles with Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, so he could try to get a ring at the end of his career. If I watch him one more time rip LeBron for ring shopping when that's exactly what he did, I'm going to be in the corner over here cutting myself. Man, I mean, that is so freaking hypocritical, man. Come on. Have a little self-awareness, Chuck.
I want to push this in the corner. So you're talking about a change in culture, and you're saying that we have drifted into a far softer culture.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
We are devaluing merit across the board, and this is another example.
And one of the effects of this, you're saying, though, is this is one of the reasons why LeBron is actually not as great as Michael Jordan, is because he's facing less obstacles. He's facing less resistance. So he's got
the culture is perfectly fine with him not being the best ever.
Yeah,
for Jordan, the culture was like, you are listen, Michael Jordan, it might be a little, frankly, canoey, but he stood up there when he got inducted in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Dude, this was 25 years later, and he was still trolling and dunking on the ninth grade coach that cut him. Okay, if a ninth grade coach dunked on LeBron James at his Hall of Fame, I just want to thank you for helping me discover myself and my true calling, and I really needed that, that reinforcement.
Let me connect the dots here. So what we're doing though is we're removing standards, and what that does is
objective standards.
And what happens though is you don't actually end up being better. It actually makes you worse.
Yes.
It actually makes you weaker. And so when you have standards that say you're not that good, and you have not accomplished as much as this person over there or that person over there, it's actually what can drive you to become better.
LeBron James is Magic Johnson and Karl Malone's body. And he's doing it against athletes even better and greater than the ones Jordan played against, because the modern strength and conditioning stuff was just coming in Jordan's career that we take for granted today. He is making them look like JV players.
Absolutely.
But the reality is, why doesn't he win more? Look what happened with Kyrie Irving. Do you know what would happen if Kyrie Irving played for Jordan in 1996 and they were at odds? And Jordan had been like, dude, you're off my Christmas card list. I'm not inviting you for Thanksgiving, and I hate your guts. But if you don't average a double-double this season, I'm going to personally kick your behind at practice.
Right.
LeBron's like, can we trade him for a cup of coffee? Because I'm just not feeling it, and there's no connection there. All right? And that's what they did. They just handed the Boston Celtics the next 10 years of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Or forget that J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith. Could you imagine Jordan responding to J.R. Smith?
J.R. Smith would have needed Kevlar and an armed guard to get out of that. I'm not even joking. I mean, what Jordan would have done to him on the way out. First of all, if Jordan was his teammate, that would have never happened.
No.
Because Dennis Rodman ceases 9 forms of crazy when he puts on the Bulls jersey.
You better believe
and he's down to just like 2 of them.
He's crazy.
He's 12 forms of crazy with the Spurs. He's only 2 forms of crazy with Michael Jordan.
What's interesting about the whole cultural piece of that is, on the one hand, you lower the standards, so maybe you don't have the toughness, you don't have the mental, focus or whatever that allows you to do this, and yet you become obsessed with the question of who's the GOAT.
Right.
It's like in
you still want a standard.
It's like, maybe it was like this back then too, but I don't think so. It's like in every sport, everybody's like, who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? Is this guy the GOAT? Is that guy the GOAT? Compared to that, is that guy?
We argued about teams in Jordan's era.
Right.
Were the 96 Bulls better than the 86 Celtics?
Right.
Or the
Interesting.
we argued
those kind
arguments.
of questions. But there's this interesting obsession with like who's the GOAT and wanting to compare across times, like, because there's almost like this insecurity.
Right.
Or something like there's something animating like that everywhere you go in any sport. especially football, especially basketball, like who's the GOAT? Because we have to find that out, and we have to be able to be like,
well, we're devaluing merit.
Yeah.
You know where else we see this is in gender dysphoria. On one hand, we're saying gender's nothing, but it's the same.
That's right, that's right.
On one hand, we're saying gender is nothing except what you feel.
Right.
Except if you feel like a woman, how would you know what feeling like a woman is unless there were unique associations with gender unto itself? Your argument unto itself is self-refuting logic, and that's exactly what's happening in sports.
And that dysphoria drives then, talking about toxic masculinity or uber feminism or whatever, but because then you're constantly trying to prove something rather than being comfortable in or receiving what God actually gives.
Right, because if
there's no standard, so you have to you constantly trying to be what you can't even define.
It's sort of like that thing when people are debating the GOAT and the guy he doesn't even say anything. He just has to put the hand out with all the rings on it.
Come on,
he just goes like that, and he goes, "What were we talking about?"
Yeah, we talking about something.
You just reminded me of one of the greatest smackbacks I've ever heard. Patrick Waugh, the Hall of Fame goalie, was asked about a player in the playoffs one year when he was with the Avalanche late in his career. Was asked about a player one year who said he's overrated. He's not that good. He's just playing on a bunch of good teams. And his response was to hold up all of the Stanley Cup rings from the Canadiens and from the Avalanche and say, "I'm sorry, I can't hear him from all the championship rings clanging in my ears."
Well, you remember too the Dream Team as well, right? Remember when the first Dream Team, not that didn't even count. The first Dream Team, right? They all are out there playing, and Jordan talking about he was the best, and what did Magic do? I got more rings than you, player.
Yeah.
What Larry Bird do? I got more rings than you.
Right.
But one thing they did know that he was on a come up, but Matt, even Jordan knew, this goes back to your first point, that he had to accomplish that level in order to be considered the greatest, right? But that's changed, and it's even affected our ability to make logical decisions about anything. So we see it in sports, but it's also affected just race and gender, right? Like you just can't understand. Right now you have men running inside of track meets with women, and everybody's trying to figure out man, we want to be fair, and we want to...
Right.
But it's a man running against a woman.
Right.
You know what I think we're up against in all of the venues we just talked about? Imagine you were outside of Lot's house that night and the crowd that was assembled.
Oh, wow.
And you just grabbed an open mic and a digital recorder and did man on the street interviews, like campus reform or I love it when they go ask people, what'd you think of Trump's speech last night? Didn't you think it was racist? And they go, oh yeah, it was terrible. And it was a speech he hadn't even given yet. It doesn't come till. I love when they do stuff like that. So to show the level of groupthink. That now put that times 150, however many people were standing outside of Lot's house that night. A mob that is so far gone. It's like that great rant Donald Pleasance has in the first Halloween movie about Michael Myers. Cannot be stopped. He cannot be contained. He cannot be defeated. He can't be killed. That's what you're dealing with in our culture. There's a segment of our culture, and I think it's amplified by social media, that has become the crowd outside of Lot's house. It's raw emotion. I emote, therefore I am. They cannot be reasoned with. No fact can. If anything that's not what I want it to be is fake news. Everything has to affirm whatever inclination or desire I want realized at that time. I will not be satiated.
Right. If there's no standards, then there's no reasoning. If there's no standards, then there's no arguing. There's only outrage. There's only emoting. That's all that there is. And honestly, that's what feels most real to people who have jettisoned reason or logic or truth. The thing that feels most real is their feelings.
Yes. And so every day Twitter becomes bring out those men so we can have our way with them. That's really what it is every day. It's just a matter of what the subject matter is. We make our corporate emotion-based demand, and we will not be, whether today it's James Gunn. I don't even like James Gunn. I don't even like his politics. But whoever, what kind of nation allows itself to be? You ever run into anybody ever introduce themselves as, "Hey, I'm a member of the social media mob. How are you, Toby?" You ever met that guy? I travel over the country. No member of the social media mob has ever. These are mom's basement dwellers, and we allow these people are making the hiring and firing decisions for the culture.
The sad thing is that many churches though are feeding this. Because rather than actually insisting that there is truth, that there are standards based on the word of God, it's just another emotional hit.
Yep. That's
right.
You go in and you get your emotional, sappy worship hit, and you have a pastor who's going to talk about how he feels and encouraging them to talk about how they feel, and it's just feeding the monster.
Yep.
The church is feeding this monster.
You want me to tell you how Shakespeare relates to all this?
I can't wait when we come back. Let's talk about this.
We're coming.
Absolutely.
Somebody here has IQ. Let's talk Shakespeare.
All right, Steve Deace. Joe Rigney on Cross Politic. Are you loving it yet? You should be liking and sharing. More when we come back. Shakespeare.
We're doing it.
LeBron, Michael Jordan.
Russia.
Right.
Putin, Trump.
Twitter. C.S. Lewis is coming next, I'm sure.
We got a bunch of people that are like, I loved your Revoice interview.
Yeah.
And I'm here to talk to you about same-sex attraction, and we're like talking about LeBron.
Yeah. We're all over the map. Yep. Just follow along. We're taking you somewhere.
Welcome back to Cross Politic on FaithWire News. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you. If you're new, a special welcome to you. If you don't know about us, check out crosspolitic.com. Join us. As I said earlier, there's awesome stuff if you become a member. I don't remember.
A lot of digital content.
Yeah,
That's
a lot
what
of
we're
cool
focusing
stuff.
on now.
Today we got Mr. Steve Deace. We got Pastor Joe Rigney. And Joe was just about ready to tell us what Shakespeare has to do with
LeBron
James and
Michael Jordan
and Russian collusion
and Twitter
and gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Twitter mobs
and postmodernism.
I'm gonna start with Twitter mobs. Okay, here's the deal. Let's talk Julius Caesar play. Julius
Okay,
Caesar,
great.
Okay? So in Julius Caesar, Caesar is the big dog, and then you've got
like a Trump.
Like,
Okay.
I mean, it's funny actually. I took some students to see a showing of this like in 2016ish, right?
Okay.
So we were studying to play. We go see a performance. And afterward, they're going to have like a Q&A with all the deals. And it's self-evident throughout the whole thing that like these actors are like, this is us. Like because the guy who's playing Caesar is like doing his Trump impersonation.
Like, this is us. Like, this is America.
This is America.
Okay.
Right. And so afterward, and they're just sitting there looking at each other like, this is where we're headed. And I'm like, do you guys know what you just did? Like, because, okay, so Caesar's up there and then Brutus, Cassius get together and they take him out. Right.
Yeah.
And then it kind of sets off this whole like chain reaction of like, you can't stop with just taking out it just unleashes this violence in the culture. And part of the way it gets stirred up, this is what made me think of your Twitter kind of discussion, social media amplifying. So if you think about all the envy, rivalry, malice that then kind of begins to metastasize, and then if you think of social media as this kind of like mimetic envy and rivalry amplification machine, and what it does is you start shooting it back and forth and ramping it up, and at some place all that lightning has to go someplace.
Right.
Like it has to go someplace. And so in Julius Caesar, it goes first onto Caesar, and then from there it goes boom,
ricochets out everywhere.
And there's actually this really so on the one hand there's the scene where Mark Antony stands up to give the famous friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears speech at Caesar's funeral, and what he does is he does this really great kind of like rhetorical manipulation of the mob who comes in and they're like, he better not say anything bad about Brutus because Brutus is amazing because Brutus had just given the speech justifying why they killed Caesar. And then he better not say anything bad about Brutus. We'll show him. And then by the end of the speech, they're like, let's kill everybody who killed Caesar. Because Mark Antony has just known how to like, he's playing hard to get. He's like, I have Caesar's will, but I can't show it to you because I don't think you can handle it. And they're like, we have to see the will. We have to see the will. And so he's like, Caesar says he gives you all of his money.
Oh,
that's how much he loved you.
Oh,
and they just start. And so he just does this whole deal where
he flips the emotional energy is pointed at one person, at Brutus or at
like, it's like Brutus is our hero, and then by the time he's done, we've got to go crucify Brutus,
right?
And then Brutus is getting run out of town. Then the really interesting thing though is actually the next scene, because the next scene you've got this like mob of citizens, like Rome has now become this the apocalyptic story where everybody's just running around doing everything,
right?
And so there's a mob wandering around, and there's this guy walking down the street, and they grab him, and they're like, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? Where are you headed? Whose side are you on? And he's like, what's your occupation? And he's like, I was just going to my house. I'm a poet. I'm on the people's side. What's your name? And he's like, what's the name of the poet? Who's the poet?
Bob.
Tear him for his verses. So whatever the guy's name, one of the conspirators had the same name. So the guy just happens to have the same name as the other conspirator.
Oh, man.
And so when he's like, Senna, he's like, my name is Senna, and they're like, he's one of the conspirators. He's like, no, I'm a poet, and they're like, tear him for his bad verses, and they just mob the guy because like the lightning has been unleashed. And so like when you start to think about the way that the amplification, what happens is as it ramps up, the two sides. So this is like kind of like the left and then like the really hard right, like the the guy, you were talking earlier, maybe this was before, but about the folks who just genuflect before Trump, or the folks who hate Trump for everything.
Yep.
And they see themselves as like polar opposites.
They're
Like
the same side, they're two sides of the same coin.
But like in all relevant respects, they are literally identical. Same tactics, same justifications. Like if the guy's on our team, can do no wrong. If he's on your team, can do no right. And it's the exact same thing. And so at the very moment when like most polarized, we are total opposites. There are no common ground. It's like you guys are total twins.
That's why, and that's when it gets worse.
That's good.
Because
that's really good.
You always hate your own reflection the most.
Yeah.
And Dr. Frankenstein always ends up hating the monster he created. And that's where they will get especially vicious when they come to that realization.
Right.
As though really, and then those of us who are particularly, when it's doing it right, that's typically the Christian church that will say to a culture in that position, we're not on any of your sides.
Yeah.
We are a transcendent entity.
Yeah.
We're not, the only way, it's like the line from War Games, the only way to win the game is not to play, and we're out.
Right.
Then both those sides will, so you think you're better than us then?
Well, and then
they will join together and go after the believers. That's the cultural pattern you see too.
So this is something that watching, you recently, I can't remember what news station it was on. I scrolled through and see
HLN?
You know what I'm going.
Yeah.
And basically you walked out because someone compared Christianity to Sharia law.
Or Christian civilization.
Saying that Christians are trying to bring on a Christian Sharia law, and you got up and walked out. And so you didn't even decide to play the game. You're like, you know what? I'm not playing this. But there was part of me that wanted you to engage because I was like, man, he's going to kill this dude.
Well, here's what happens in that situation, though.
Yeah.
These things are 8 minutes tops.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's 3 other people on the panel.
Yeah.
We're halfway through the panel already. When they came to me first, and when you watch the clip, I tried to get beyond the tribalism.
Yeah, I saw
and come
that.
up with a general thing that I think a lot of people, because it's funny, there's a lot of lefties in California talking about secession and federalism nowadays.
Right?
All right?
Yes.
All right, so
I love it.
I think we should try to figure out how to make that one stick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let's encourage
like
it.
in the Trump era, they discovered federalism.
Yes.
And we're like, and we just need to be like, go guys, go!
States' rights.
go.
States' rights.
I'm like, whether it was Citizens United or Roe v. Wade, there's probably a lot of Americans that think judges have too much power. So I tried to have an adult conversation. Right away, the other party wasn't going to have that.
Yeah.
And he's coming back to me, and the reason why you see me silent is because I'm doing all the mental math in my head.
Yeah.
I'm figuring, I'm doing, if I do this, what are the next 5 things that happen? If I do this, what are the next 5 things? And so I'm preparing myself to actually respond to him, but he's not making he's throwing out a pejorative that's hard to break down in 140 characters or less.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so I realized he's not the issue.
Yeah.
She is. She's supposed to be the moderator.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be an adult conversation. She should have stepped in and said, that's not, that's out of bounds.
Yeah.
Because imagine what I could have said to him in reverse.
Yeah.
Would think she would have allowed that? No way she would have allowed that.
Yeah. You
Okay?
got,
And so that's why I went on.
you got Facebook censored.
That's why I went to her and said, hey, I tried to be an adult.
Yeah.
You invited me on here. We've had good conversations in the past. But this talking point is so over the top, so ridiculous.
Yeah.
You should not have allowed it to stand. She agreed with me.
Yeah.
I was then prepared to respond intellectually to his point. He takes her agreeing with me and then goes right into it. Because like one of the things I was going to point out to him is, tell me why a Christian Saudi Arabia would be bad. Because right now, you think if we don't import all of Saudi Arabia to America with our immigration policy, we're racist. How can both those things be true?
Right.
This thing's it's a non-entity. It's a red herring.
Yeah.
And then when she allowed him to go on again, that's when I said, you know what? I'm either going to become the straw man they want me to be because they're really ticking me off right now,
Yeah.
or I'm just going to kick the dust off my sandals and move on. Because and afterwards, I got to thinking. Because I had to jump on a conference call right after this for like an hour.
Yeah.
It was like an hour and a half later when I checked my phone and saw this thing had gone viral.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, you know what? I actually think this is a good tactic.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to argue against their negatives, their emotional negatives.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be, rather than arguing emotional negatives with emotional negatives, I think we need to be the adults and say, if you want to act like a Walmart aisle child, then we'll treat you like one. I'm going to go over here and finish shopping.
Right.
You'll be here in the cereal aisle emoting that I didn't get enough Lucky Charms.
Yeah. Right.
And then when I'm done shopping, I'm going to go in the car and pull out. If you're in the car, you get to come home. If not, call a cab. We're not going to entertain this anymore.
Yeah.
We're just simply not going to allow certain things we should just simply say are so out of bounds, we won't tolerate them.
So here's the interesting about that for me, like in terms of strategies.
You got real smooth real quick. I see you.
I've got a cold.
You got the Barry,
and so I kind of sound.
I thought you had the spirit of Barry White over there.
It could be that. Maybe
okay.
So the interesting thing is, in order to do what you're doing, as you described, I didn't see the clip, but I described in the situation. The fundamental thing that you have to be is in control of yourself, right? Which is the fundamental thing that when you go online is not happening for most of these people. It's entirely reactive. It's a powder keg. It's a hair trigger. All it takes is boom, and you don't know where the explosion's actually going to happen. You don't day to day, like we wake up, you don't know what thing is going to set off the mob.
You know it's something.
You know something because
the electricity's in the air.
Because the electricity's in the air, and you know that something's going to activate it.
Right.
And so in that kind of environment, you can't try to control the explosion. The only thing that you're responsible for before God is yourself. So you're sitting there going, I can't control the moderator. I can't control the other talking head. I can't do that. The only thing I can do is think about what can I do before God in order to love my neighbor and act deliberately to do it. So I'm not so there's a way in which they could do that, and you could like get huffy and throw up your hands and walk out in a kind of reactive way, and you're just doing the same thing they're doing another way. Or you could say, this is actually a deliberate strategy. Like I'm actually, like it looks like they might think, oh, he's running away, and it's like, actually I just punched you back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But in order for it to be a deliberate strategy, it has to actually be deliberate, which means the fundamental thing is kind of I know who I am. I know what I'm about, and I'm under control of me, and because of that, I'm actually trying to call other people into a kind of personal responsibility.
Well, yeah, and also too, social media has said that the last person who comments wins. Right, this trained us on how we think about engaging an argument, and so
who gets the mic drop?
Right, exactly, and then so whoever has the last word wins, and so they keep baiting. And that person, we should know a little bit about that. We've had some trolls this past week. Yeah. Instead of saying, actually, especially when arguing with atheists, this is my new thing. Atheist comes on and says, hey, God doesn't exist. I don't believe in God. Only believe in logic and truth. And I delete his comment. He comes back and says the same thing again. I delete his comment. He's like, why do you keep deleting my comment? What, you want a sense of morality all of a sudden?
Right.
Yeah. Why do you? So walking
where
away.
Where would you get logic and truth from?
Where do you get a standard for what I'm doing is wrong?
Right.
How do you get that standard?
I think we're going to have to. And I talked about this at Called when I was speaking earlier today. Whenever Nehemiah shows up to rebuild the walls, Sanballat and Tobiah are not far behind.
That's right.
There are unbelievers, and then there are haters. Unbelievers are people who don't know, such as once were some of us, all of us.
Yeah.
Haters don't want to know. Haters don't want to know. They don't want anybody else to know either. They're the people Paul writes about at the end of Romans 1. These are the people who delight in creating new ways to do evil and encouraging others to do the same. They don't want to know.
Or
okay.
Jesus does they travel over land and sea. You're trying to keep people from getting it. It's not
yes.
If the Pharisees had just said, Jesus, we don't have time for this. We don't listen to you. Jesus would have been like, see you guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were like, and we're going to actually keep you from talking to anybody else.
Yes.
Right.
I tried to push back and have an adult conversation.
Right.
She agreed, but then let Sanballat and Tobias spout off.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm just going, you know what? Nehemiah, I'm not coming down to argue with you about nothing. Yeah. Because this is a pointless exercise, and it takes me off of the focus of what God has called me to do. And so I think we actually need to. You don't put out a fire with lighter fluid. Like you don't sit there. You're not some redneck hillbilly. Hey mom, watch this. I'm going to put out the house fire and I'm spraying lighter fluid everywhere.
Yeah,
all right. Emotion can't cast out emotion. Beelzebub cannot cast out Beelzebub.
Yeah.
And I think we need to do, Nehemiah was one of the biggest alpha males of the entire scriptures. I mean, a guy, one of my life verse is, Lord, I beat these people and pulled out their beards. Remember what I did for you. I love that. I'm in. I'm
don't
so
forget.
in.
Don't forget.
Yes.
That's right.
I'm going to preach on that. That'll preach.
Yeah.
Okay. But he was also the guy that said, you know what? I can clearly discern there's nothing constructive will happen from this except to distract and detract me from the work God has called me to do.
Right,
So you nattering nabobs can sit here and ponder the lint in your navel until you wake up in hell.
Yeah.
I'm going to be over here building the walls.
But isn't that where a lot of people get the idea of like, you know what? I'm just going to preach the gospel. Because obviously engaging in politics, it's a messed up thing. You're not going to get any traction. People are going to treat you like they just treated you. Forget that. I'm just going to go preach the gospel and work on changing people's hearts because that obviously isn't a place that I'm going to give a fair shake.
See, I was almost there.
Yeah.
I even said it that when I was talking to the kids today. I spent 10 years of my professional life trying to get Christians in politics, and now I'm wondering maybe if that was a mistake. Okay? But that's a joke. But it's a false choice between all politics or not.
Yeah.
What God has shown me in the last couple of years, because I had like this midlife crisis moment after the last election and watching the way it turned out and all the Roll Tide evangelicals I had blowing up my feed okay, who can misquote Matthew 7 as good as the atheist can. All right?
Roll Tide evangelicals.
And every politician that's terrible that you want to justify voting for is King David, but we leave out the part where like King David caused civil wars and stillborn kids with his sin, because we always forget God punished him for all of his sin at the same time.
You're kind of like, okay, if Trump's repentant, he can go to heaven, but do you know what? He doesn't get to be president.
Yes. And suddenly it's like bad Republican politicians are okay, but bad Democrat politicians, God can never work through them at the same time, right?
Right.
All right, so I was just burnt out over all of that. And then God showed me, you know what? That's why I talked about Paul today. Mm-hmm. I can use politics, instead of seeing it primarily as a way to get the policy outcomes I want. I didn't say exclude the policy outcomes I want, but not making it the prime directive, but using it as a platform to reach unbelievers. And what I have found now is my inbox is littered every day from conservative Jews, conservative Mormons, atheists, secularists that are fascinated by my willingness to hold both sides accountable. I don't water down the gospel. I went and did a youth ministry or a campus ministry Skype event at BYU earlier this year. Everybody knows I mean, I've gotten questions. I've talked about, if you don't believe in the Trinity, you're basically taking the opening chapter of John, the entire book of Colossians, and among other things, and throwing them out. I haven't watered anything down, but what I've done is shown that I don't have to hate you if we disagree on everything. If we agree on enough, we can work together, provided you don't ask me to change my convictions. And I'm going to hold both sides accountable to the same standard. And what I have found is this is now giving me, politics is giving me an opening to have theological conversations I couldn't have on my platform a couple years ago.
To tie this all together, you said earlier, you got the kind of the bad Republicans and the bad Democrats, and they're fighting with each other, and they're sitting there saying, hey, our guy's never wrong, to some extent. Well, that's the same kind of conversation we're having with LeBron and Jordan. We're saying that there's a standard that applies to both, and that's how we can judge the Republicans. That's how we can judge the Democrats, and that's how we can judge. That's how we can judge LeBron and Jordan.
That's how you can have these conversations, and you can disagree, and it's not about emotion. You can disagree because there's a standard. It's not about your feelings. It's not about their feelings. That's not the ultimate standard. The ultimate standard is God's word and His world that He made. You can have hard disagreements. You can have arguments over that, but it's your heart. Your feelings are not the sacred core.
I remember talking to you a couple weeks ago, Steve, maybe it was 3 weeks ago, and we were just talking about, how do we make it in this business? And you said, well, either you kind of back to your beginning points, either you kind of got to kiss the butts of the current Republican establishment and they'll put you on Fox, or you got to kind of be the token Republican who's constantly badgering or constantly disagreeing with the Trump administration.
And they'll put you on CNN and MSNBC.
Right. They'll put you on CNN. But principled Christians do not make it in this business at that level.
But that's what we need.
We need. Do we have another segment after this?
We don't. But hold on. Wait. Say what you want to say.
One thing I want to say in response to what you just said, that I think this is something that's happened to me several times. I think our audience needs to hear. I have had several times producers at major cable networks call me up to screen me to be a guest on a panel. And when I give them my opinion and it doesn't conform to the Venn diagram they prefer.
That's right.
Trump sucks or Cheeto Jesus. That's right. So Trump's either the Antichrist or Cheeto Jesus. If it doesn't conform to that,
Cheeto Jesus.
I have literally been told, they've said this to me. We're looking for sides more than opinions.
Right.
And I think that's a very difficult arena for a biblical Christian to operate in because, A, we're not comfortable in the arena of opinions to begin with because we're in the arena of truth.
Right.
But now if you're telling me my earnest effort to have a truth-based opinion isn't welcome if it doesn't conform to one of your sides, now we're pro wrestling, where it's real. I mean, they're really hitting each other, but it's scripted.
That's right.
And that's most of what our audience consumes.
And the only side we do take is Jesus' side.
Amen.
That's it.
Right. So that's why we need pastors, we need teachers who are just driving people back to the Word of God and saying, what does the Word of God say? Amen. Stand there. It's not about you. It's not about your feelings. It's not about how other people feel about it. It's about what's true and being loyal to Jesus, no matter how the chips fall.
Are you done?
Okay.
Are you done?
Yes. Okay. I'm done.
We'll try this again. There we go.
We had a premature evacuation a minute ago. We're ready to go now.
We can do this all day long. You got something else you want? I'll stop this in a second.
Do not tempt a brother like that. Do not cause a brother to stumble like that.
Something that I've observed just in the last 2 days, and I would love to get your insight on this. back in the day, we were only doing 2 shows a week, Wednesday and Friday. We picked up Wednesday because, Wednesday and Sunday. It was our Sunday special. We recorded it on Friday because we don't work on the Lord's Day. But Wednesday, we picked up an extra show because we saw that we needed to start making more content every week other than just on once a week, because we wanted to respond to some of the stuff that was happening throughout the week. The demand for our show became more prominent. But I realized, so our midweek show was just like, 30, 45 minutes, something like that. We wanted to do a half hour in the week to kind of get some of the topics that were happening. And then we do the long form show on Sunday, which would run somewhere between an hour and 10 or an hour and 30 minutes long. Now, one of the things that I just picked up on was, man, I really miss some of that long form type of conversation with our guests. It didn't feel rushed. We weren't facing the clock. And we were just able to talk freely and work through ideas in a more complete way instead of just kind of hitting the points, making a good point and then moving on to something else. We actually had long form dialogue back and forth. I wonder if you guys miss that. Is it just me? I'm grateful. Now listen, I'm grateful for the daily show. I think that's really good because we get to respond to things every day. We get to have more of a connection with you. But I would love for you to send us an email at contact@FightLaughFeast. I want to know what you guys think. Do you like the daily? You can't pick between the two. If you had to say, okay, yeah, I love the daily 30-minute show. I love it. That's it. So you got to choose between the daily 30-minute show, or do you miss the long form twice a week shows? Now that's tough. You kind of want both, right? You I want an hour long every day, and but if I had to choose between 30 minutes a day versus an hour long form, which one would you choose? All right, so you send us an email, contact@fightlaughfeast.com. I want to know what you guys are thinking. Do you wish we could go back to the twice a week, or are you loving the dailies, but they're shorter? We'd love to hear from you, so that would be great. Also, I forgot about this. Steve Deace, I wonder if he still thinks Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. Because LeBron James just did the whole scoring thing, broke Kareem's record. So I'm wondering if he still feels that way. Have to ask him next time I talk to him. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
Home. It's where you build your legacy, where traditions are started, seeds are planted, meals are shared, and stories are told. We are Chris and Natalie Carpenter, owners of Story Real Estate, and our team of top agents helps people find homes in Moscow, Idaho, and around the country.
Have you thought about a move? Contact us to get connected with a top agent who shares your values and puts your family first. Or reach out to us about our Moscow relocation guide.
Wherever you're looking to go, we can help you find home. Call us at Story Real Estate or visit us at storyrealestate.com and start building your legacy.